My grandmother used to tell me not to take gifts from strangers. I should have listened. When she passed away, I inherited her house, a creaky two-story place filled with old furniture, lace curtains, and the faint smell of lavender that never went away. I moved in to fix it up, maybe even sell it. The first week was quiet, peaceful even. But on the 6th night, I heard knocking. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. It wasn't at the door, it was coming from the attic. I tried to ignore it, but it happened again the next night. Finally, I grabbed a flashlight and climbed the narrow stairs. Dust fell from the ceiling as I pulled the attic door open. Inside were boxes stacked to the rafters, old clothes, photographs, and something else, a glass display case. Inside it sat a doll. It was about 2 feet tall, dressed in an old-fashioned lace dress with little black shoes. Its porcelain face was cracked around the edges, and one eye was slightly off-center, like it was looking just past me. A small tag hung around its neck, for my dearest Lily. My grandmother's name was Lily. I assumed it was just an old toy of hers. But when I opened the case to take a closer look, something cold brushed my wrist. Like a breath, I dropped the flashlight, and when I picked it up again, the doll had turned. Not much, just enough that it was facing me. I laughed it off, told myself I must have moved it by accident. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking I heard footsteps upstairs, tiny ones. The next morning, I found the doll sitting on the table in the kitchen. I didn't move it there. I tried to convince myself I'd forgotten, that I must have brought it down without remembering. But later that day, I found small wet footprints on the tile, like someone had been walking barefoot after a bath. Only, they were too small for an adult, too real for a doll. I decided to put it back in the case and lock the attic door. That night, the knocking returned, louder, faster, and then came the voice, a whisper from the dark at the foot of my bed. "Don't lock me away again." I froze. My breath hitched. When I turned on the lamp, the doll was sitting on the dresser, its head tilted, its eyes now perfectly aligned, staring straight at me. I packed it in a box and drove to the local antique shop the next morning. The old man at the counter didn't even look surprised. He just stared at the box and said quietly, "Where did you get this?" I told him it belonged to my grandmother. He shook his head. "This isn't hers," he said. "She used to sell antiques, didn't she? Dolls like this one?" I nodded. "She didn't make them," he continued. "She trapped them." He told me there was a rumor that my grandmother collected dolls made from the spirits of people who wronged her. She didn't curse them, she contained them, kept them from hurting anyone else. The old man looked at me with pity. By opening that case, he said, "You let it out." I drove home in silence. When I got back, the attic door was open. Inside, the glass case was shattered, and sitting in the middle of the floor was a new doll. It wore jeans and a gray hoodie. Its hair was short and brown. Its face looked familiar. The tag around its neck said, "For my dearest Lily, from your granddaughter." I dropped the flashlight, and this time, I didn't pick it up. It showed up on a Wednesday. I woke up, went to make coffee, and there it was, a door at the end of the hallway that had never been there before. It wasn't new either. The paint was chipped, the wood was old and gray, and the handle was tarnished brass, cool to the touch. I just stood there, staring at it, trying to remember if I'd ever noticed an extra door before. I'd lived in this house for 7 years. I knew every squeaky floorboard, every nail in the wall, but this door didn't belong. I told myself I must have been half asleep. I made my coffee, sat down, and tried to forget it, but the sound started about an hour later. A soft knocking, slow, patient, coming from behind the new door. At first I thought it was the pipes or maybe the house settling, but when I pressed my ear to the wood, I heard something else, breathing. I backed away and grabbed my phone, but of course there was no signal. There never was in that hallway, but it had never bothered me until now. The knocking came again, louder this time. I shouted, "Who's in there?" Silence. Then a voice whispered, muffled through the wood, "Let me out." I froze. It sounded like a man, but it was faint, distorted, like a voice heard through water. I wanted to leave, but curiosity kept me there. My hand was already on the handle before I realized what I was doing. The door opened easily. On the other side wasn't a room. It was a staircase, spiraling down into darkness. I should have closed it right then. Instead, I turned on my phone's flashlight and stepped inside. The air was damp and heavy. The deeper I went, the quieter the world above became, until even my own footsteps seemed muffled. At the bottom was another door, identical to the first. When I opened it, I stepped into what looked like my house. Same walls, same furniture, but everything was slightly wrong. The colors were off, too pale, like everything had been drained of life, and there was a smell, metallic, like rust or blood. Then I heard it again, knocking, but this time it came from the hallway behind me. When I turned, the door I'd come through was gone. I ran through the house, trying every exit, but each door opened to another version of the same place, darker, emptier, quieter. Each window looked out into pitch black nothing. That's when I saw movement, someone or something standing at the end of the hallway. It was me, same face, same clothes, but his eyes were completely black, and he was smiling. He lifted a hand and waved slowly. I stumbled back, shouting, "What is this?" He tilted his head. His voice was low, calm. "You opened the wrong door." He started walking toward me. I turned and ran, down another hallway, into another door, through another version of the same house. Every time I entered a new one, I could hear him following. No matter where I went, the knocking continued, from the walls, from the floor, from inside the house itself. Finally, I burst into a room that looked exactly like my living room. My coffee was still on the table, steam rising. For a moment, I thought I'd made it out, but when I looked down the hallway, the door was still there, wide open, and someone was standing in the doorway, watching me. It was me again, but this one wasn't smiling. He looked tired, terrified. He raised his hands like he was begging me for something. "Please," he said, "don't open it again." Before I could respond, the door slammed shut. I ran to it, yanked it open, and found myself staring into another hallway. Only this time, there was no end. I shouted until my throat hurt, but no one came. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't seem to work right. Every time I open another door, it leads me deeper, into another version of this same house. I can still hear the knocking. Sometimes it comes from behind me, sometimes ahead, and now, when I knock back, something knocks in return. If you ever wake up and see a new door in your house, don't open it, because one day, someone might open yours from the other side. It started as a dare. They always do. Dirty Dan and Dali had been best friends since kindergarten. Every summer, they'd race bikes down the back roads, throw rocks at abandoned barns, and sneak into old silos. But the one place they'd never gone was the cornfield behind Miller's farm. People said weird things about that field, that it was cursed, that you could walk straight through it and never come out the same. Dali's older brother once said, if you listened close enough, you could hear the corn whisper your name. So of course, one hot July afternoon, Dan had a brilliant idea. "Let's go in," he said, grinning. "See how far we can get before it gets dark." Dali hesitated. "Your mom's gonna kill us if we get lost again." Dan laughed, smearing dirt across his cheek. "What, you scared?" But something about that field, the way the wind moved through it without actually bending the stalks, made his stomach twist. Still, he followed Dan through the wooden fence and into the sea of corn. The air changed immediately. The buzzing of cicadas vanished, replaced by a low hum, almost like the earth itself was breathing. The stalks were tall, towering over them, their dry leaves scratching against the boys' arms as they pushed through. After a few minutes, Dali looked back. The fence was gone. "Hey," he said, "maybe we should mark where we came from." Dan just kept walking, hands in his pockets. "Relax, we'll find our way out. Just keep going straight." But straight didn't exist anymore. The rows twisted and curved, and before long, everything looked the same. The sun was starting to dip, painting the sky orange and red. That's when they heard it, a voice, faint but clear, drifting through the corn. "Dali." Dali stopped cold. "You hear that?" Dan grinned. "Yeah, they're saying your name, Dali. The corn likes you." But it wasn't funny. The voice sounded like his mother. He turned, trying to follow it, but no matter which way he moved, it always sounded just out of reach. Then the wind shifted, and the whisper changed. Dan. Now it was his turn to freeze. "Okay," Dali said, forcing a laugh. "You can stop messing around now." Dan didn't respond. He was staring down a row of corn, eyes wide, mouth hanging open. "Dan, I saw something," Dan whispered. "Someone." Dali squinted. "What?" Dan took a shaky breath. "A man, tall, standing right between the stalks. His head, it was like a sack, like a bag over it." The two stood in silence, listening. The wind picked up again, carrying with it the dry rustle of corn, and something else, the faint sound of footsteps. Dali grabbed Dan's arm. "We need to go back." Dan didn't move. His expression was strange now, almost calm. "Maybe he can show us the way out," he said softly. Before Dali could stop him, Dan walked toward the sound. "Dan, stop," Dali shouted, but the corn swallowed his voice. He ran after him, branches whipping at his face, dirt crunching beneath his sneakers. He burst into a clearing, but Dan wasn't there. The clearing was small, about the size of a room. In the middle stood a scarecrow. Its clothes were torn, its head made of burlap, with dark stains running down the sides. Its arms were outstretched, and around its neck hung a wooden sign. It read, "Dirty Dan." Dali's heart dropped. "Dan!" He screamed and stumbled back, running through the corn blindly, until he tripped and fell into the dirt. When he looked up, Dan was standing over him, but something was wrong. Dan's eyes were glassy, his smile too wide, his fingernails were black with dirt. "Where'd you go?" Dali asked, voice shaking. Dan tilted his head. "I was right here." He stepped closer, dragging one foot behind him, like it didn't work right. "Dan, stop." Dan grinned. "He showed me the way out." "Who did?" "The man with the sack. He said one of us can leave if the other stays." Before Dali could react, Dan lunged. They crashed into the dirt, fighting. Dali pushed and screamed, but Dan was stronger. His strength didn't feel human. His hands clawed at Dali's throat, whispering words that didn't sound like English. "Get off me," Dali cried, kicking free. He grabbed a thick corn stalk and swung. The end cracked against Dan's temple. Dan fell silent. Dali stood there, panting, shaking. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The corn around him rustled, slow and deliberate, like something moving closer. He turned and ran. Minutes, maybe hours passed. The sky above was completely black now. He saw a flicker of light through the rows, a lantern, swinging gently. The corn parted, and he stumbled out into the open field. There was the fence, the barn, his bike. He was out. He dropped to his knees, sobbing. Behind him, something rustled. He turned and froze. The scarecrow stood at the edge of the field. It wasn't there before, and around its neck now hung two signs. The old one still said Dirty Dan. The new one said Dali. The next morning, the sheriff found Dali's bike leaning against the fence. No sign of the boys, but when he looked out over the cornfield, he swore he saw two shapes standing among the stalks, side by side, watching.